Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. We are at the top of the hour, maybe a minute over. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you and welcome to Platform Analytics Academy here on September the 18th. For anybody that is new, welcome. For anybody that is returning, always welcome back. We appreciate you coming. So we'll go through some logistical information and then we'll get right into our content for today. So as usual, this content is always for you. We try as best as we can to bring fresh ideas, better understanding, and practical guidance. A lot of what we'll do today will obviously be better understanding and practical guidance, but it could be some fresh ideas for some people that are on. This is being recorded, so feel free to sit back and enjoy. It will be out on the community later on this afternoon, this evening, or early tomorrow morning, and it will be out on YouTube as well. Please do ask questions. Feel free to ask the Q&A. We just ask that all of those questions be put into the Q&A because we do have extra panelists that are on that can answer questions, maybe perhaps via type. And if there is a question that comes about that is relevant to where we are in our content, we do stop and ask those questions. If there are any questions that are unrelated to the content that we're covering today, we welcome those as well, but we may just have to get to those towards the end of the presentation today. If we don't get to those, if we don't get to any question or a particular question, please feel free to ask that question into the community. Not only do we have great ServiceNow people that monitor that community, but we have really incredibly talented, intelligent customers that also answer questions on a daily basis. But please feel free to ask those there if we're not able to get to them today. Safe Harbor, don't know that we have a whole lot in here today as it relates to this, but we always like to make sure that we at least acknowledge it and show it to you all so you have an understanding that if we do mention something that is forward thinking or roadmap, you'll understand all those things around Safe Harbor. So with that, my name is Thomas Davis, and I am the host and presenter. I'll also have Adam here as well. He is going to present a little bit of this content, and then he is also a panelist, and then we have Dan that should be coming around here soon. And then we have Olga on as well, who is part of our inbound team and the resident guru as it relates to reporting. So really good people here today to answer some really great questions. So as I said, if you have any questions, if you can put those in Q&A, it also gives us an opportunity to track those after the Zoom call, and we can do further things with those questions if we need to. So as this says, we're going to talk about reporting best practices today. So up front, obviously, we understand and recognize that we are moving forward with Next Experience and platform analytics and all the things that come with that. And obviously, data visualizations do clear up a lot of the reporting that was previously done within performance analytics. But we also understand that a good population of our customers are still using reporting, and they build reports and use them every day. So it's important for us to continue to support those folks as well. So that's what this call is about, is just kind of talk about some best practices. There's not really a demo in this call today. It is a lot of conversation around different things that you should think about as you're building reports and keeping reports and things of that nature. So a lot of great conversation and just some ideas and different best practices and things that you should do, and maybe some things that you shouldn't do, and then some tuning information and things along that line. So with that, let me go ahead and get started. I do have to change screens here. So let me or change presentations, I'm sorry. All right, so everybody is seeing my screen. Can one of the panelists give me a yep?
Yes.
All right, great. So again, reporting best practices. So as I just stated a few moments ago, obviously, just up front, if you are a net new instance in Xanadu, then the reporting core UI of building reports is not something that you're aware of or is actually in your instance. All of the reporting that you will do, you'll build those via data visualizations within Platform Analytics. So if you are a net new customer in Xanadu and you're here today, I think that is great. This is really good information for you even as well, but just understand that you'll create a lot of your reports, quote unquote, inside of data visualizations. However, some of the things that we'll share with you today is things that you should think about as you actually build those data visualizations out as well. So there's a lot of good, still relevant information as it relates to that. So reporting, dashboards, and performance analytics in the core UI. So if you've been around for a while, you're very familiar with this. You build reports, you can build performance analytics widgets, and you can pop those into dashboards, or you can have standalone reports that you share with people that people view on a daily basis, how often. So that is really prior to platform analytics. That is the way that we actually gave information within the organization to our customers, was via reporting and widgets and dashboards. And they do work together or they work independently, but that's the way that it is prior to NetNew Xanadu. So let's real quick, like I said, a lot of conversation around this today. So we like to think of analytics as a team sport. Obviously, there are different roles, there's different responsibilities and things that are out there. So someone who's building a report or building a widget maybe doesn't have access to actually build a database view. So that's where system admin comes in. So you have admins and developers and application developers and process owners and managers and things of that nature. So if you notice, all of these circles sort of come together and connect. There are different responsibilities and things of sort that all of them do to work together cohesively to then give out the actual end product, whether it be a dashboard with reports and widgets on it, or just simply a report. And what that means is, are you having conversations, right? Are you talking prior to building a report? Are you having conversations? Do you know exactly what the end user that you're building for, needs? Are there different ways that you can prepare the data when you actually build it out, that it's going to work easier from a performance perspective? It looks better. It gives them the relevant information that they're looking for. It's not a lot of extra information that doesn't necessarily, it's not bad to have there, but does it achieve what they're looking for? So being a team sport and having a lot of conversations around what exactly is going on to it is a really great thing that you should be doing as a analytics team within your organization. Because like I said, not everybody can do everything as it relates to this on this particular list. So making sure that you have those relationships and knowing where to go and continuous conversation with them will make this whole process definitely a whole lot easier for you. So again, understand your team, and we do have some documentation out there that helps you and some videos that actually will help you through that process of deciding who should be on that team and things of that nature. But even outside of those people, do you have relationships with your admins when you're going to need something that's going to be created that's outside of your fingertips? So building for performance. So are you using the right tools? Are you using them correctly and things of that nature as it relates to reporting? And that's what this section is about, is actually talking to those particular things and making sure that you're aware and conscious of decisions that you make when you actually build out particular things within reporting themselves. So this is a big one, right? And I think that probably everybody that's a panelist on this call could talk extensively about this. Is, are you configuring data for your applications for analytics, right? Are you thinking about things that should be reported on, and could you possibly add what we're calling in this case a reporting field to tables within your content to make it easier to report on that? And that doesn't really matter what flavor you have here, because you can see we've listed quite a few. There's quite often there's ways that you can build in reporting fields by obviously partnering with your admins into the tables, the data tables, and making reporting on those a little bit easier. So there's a lot of great content and conversations in the community about this particular subject. So just think about that. If it's not something that you're familiar with, then look into it a little bit. And maybe it's a particular word or category or something, right, that is in a lot of the different data. Can you make that in quite a few tables to make sure that when you reporting out on it, you have simplistic ways to actually pull all of that different data together? So just something to think about, high level, as you go to actually build out, or if you existingly have content that's out there, maybe an easier way to pull that data together. This particular graph is one that has been around for a long time. I know that Adam, who's on, loves this particular graph. And I know that it is one of those topics that we have pretty extensive conversation around about. Do you know which visualization that you should be using when you're actually putting a report together? I know that people, obviously everybody, we're creatures of comfort, and a lot of people maybe feel that a bar graph will work for everything, or a single score will work for everything, but that's not necessarily the case. So understanding which visualization and how it can, render that data for your customers, putting some thought and time into that, and deciding, a better way of, getting that information out there via visualization is something that you should take some time on. We did do an academy session a couple years ago where I actually went through every single visualization that is currently available within the platform at that time, and most of those, a good portion of those, are in Platform Analytics as well. But actually talking to all of those different visualizations and what they actually can achieve for you. So, like I said, it's very easy and very comfortable just to grab the good safety net one that you are aware of, and it has worked, and that may be absolutely great. But I think opening up your mind to looking at visualizations a little bit differently and doing some research and saying, actually, this may render this content to the customer a little bit better and give them a better end goal and achieving what they're actually looking for, rather than just doing the same old, same old. And let me stop there because, Adam, I know that you've talked to this a lot, so I don't know if there's anything that you want to add to this or not.
No,
That's great too.
no,
So,
it's good.
do we need to stop for any questions? Nope.
No, I think we're good for now. Well, oh, maybe there's a
Is it
brand new one on
missing a
there.
graph? Thank you, Stephen. I will check this and make sure that if it is missing it, it will be in there by the next time that I actually display it and actually into what I put into the community. So thank you, Stephen. I appreciate that. So next, let's talk about the appropriate feature, what you should be using when you're building something out. Let's talk about a couple things. So one thing that I think is of incredible value, and it is something that I think sometimes gets a little bit underused, are report sources slash data sources. So when you have come up with a way that you're going to decide that people or your organization is going to report on particular data, just like you build an indicator source for an indicator, and this is the way that that should be done, you can do the same thing for reports. So when you create a report and you figure out the filtering that you want around that, then you can actually create that or save that as a report source and let other people use that. It is another good way to sort of bring some governance in and say, hey, listen, if you want to be able to report on the data that we want you to report on the way that we expect you to report on it, then use this particular report source when you do that. If you go outside of that and decide to build your own, and then we come back together and our numbers are different, well, we know the report source number is correct because we've had the backroom conversations around it, and we know that this is the way that we should be reporting on it. So again, it gives you a little bit of governance, and it is a really nice way to say, okay, listen, we've given you the opportunity to build reports, but we've also clarified and created ways that you should be reporting on this. So use this particular report source when you build out a report in the report UI. And obviously you can see here that, you can just select data source right there for the report or the source type. So rather than a table, you would select data source, and then all of the ones that are there would actually list out there for you. So again, another thing that maybe you're using, maybe you're not, maybe you're aware, maybe you have some use or whatnot. If you're using it, I think that that's great. If you're not, I think you should definitely look into it because it is a really great source that can give you, again, like I said, some governance around what people are actually looking at when they build reports. So really good stuff there.
Hey, Thomas, can I add one more thing
Sure.
in? So going back to the report sources, Thomas talked about the accuracy, which is the most important thing. Is sometimes it's hard to figure out what's being calculated, and having the report source makes that really easy for things like resolved or closed, where hey, we don't look at the close date, we look at the resolve date, things like that. It's really great to have, but also performance. And we talk about best practices and performance. The active is such a great example because I will see people who filter on open, and I actually don't know of out of the box, which I need to go look at today, but by default, choice fields are not indexed. And that was true for the state field at task at one point, and it may be indexed now. But if you added a new field that was a new choice field, it's not indexed. So if I search for open, it's using a non-indexed field. It's doing a full table scan. But if you add active is true and state is open, it's going to use the active index. And so by adding an additional field, you get way better performance, which is a little counterintuitive to me, but it's there. And by putting that in a report source, you don't have to have everybody figure that out. So not only do you ensure that's the right data for this is our closed data set, but it's also, you can make sure that it's the most performant. And that can be really, really important. Particularly, I believe we have a new control in Xanadu that allows you to restrict users to different data sources, different data types. But it's really, really important that, like the resolved, this is the optimum way to calculate resolved. Or if there's a state and priority, and this is our high priority set, you get the right data and you get the most performant way. So report sources are really something you want to be using and encouraging your business users to use and nurture, so that we don't get slightly different conditions for the same type of report. Also makes it when you have to update something, if we ever have anything that's a constant, like we are, much as I don't like this, but if we're saying, hey, we're excluding this PRB number, or we're going to exclude cases of this type from our open case count because it's something weird, or you can just update your report source and it updates all of those reports. The same thing with the save filters for Platform Analytics. You update it there and it updates everything. So make sure you're thinking about that and not just doing one-offs all the time. Platform Analytics is better in general for this stuff, but make sure you're thinking about reusability and scalability. When you have one report, it doesn't matter, but when you have 100 reports, that'd be a lot of time to go through and check all of those things. And there was a question that came in that I saw in the Q&A that I wanted to talk about for the adding custom fields. It's fine. It's fine. I own upgrades too. It's fine. Don't be afraid to add a field that you need. What we don't want to see is reinventing the wheel. And we want to stay away from customizing specific objects like a business rule, like a flow. That can cause you some heartburn and upgrades. Specifically, customizing a business rule. Now you're going to have to look at that forever. Customizing a view of a form or something like that, and not adding something new to it, or adding a new view. But adding a field is something I don't want you to be afraid of. Certainly consider it. Don't just do it because somebody asked you to. Think about it and go, hey, do we need this? But I definitely would add a new field over reusing a field. I see people reusing fields, which makes your reporting an utter nightmare, right? If for this type of case, we use the short description to mean this, and in this type of case, we mean it to be this, and in this type of case, it means that, your reporting is just utter nightmare. So don't be afraid to add a field. Adding a field is highly unlikely to cause you an upgrade issue. In the global scope, it won't, because all the custom fields are prefixed with U, which means we'll never have a name collision. In a custom in a scoped app, it's theoretically possible to hit a name collision on a field. So if you want to add a U to it, or you're adding something that's specific for you, you won't have a problem. So don't be afraid to add a field, especially when it's going to make your life so much easier. Okay, I'll get off my soapbox.
That's okay.
Yeah.
No, awesome. I appreciate it.
And I also put the link to that to your article, your blog post on it in the answer there too.
I can do a 35-minute set on just that topic, but I'm.
Oh, I know. That's why I did the blog post.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and there were bullets there, and I missed the performance one, so I really appreciate you chiming in. Just we don't miss that. And then the reusability and not having to update, tons of reports. So really good stuff. So I do want to answer one before I keep going. And we had one that come in that said, it's talking about how the report sources are located somewhere different in Platform Analytics. So screenshot is a bit weird for Platform Analytics Academy. So a couple things there. So Platform Analytics Academy covers everything as it's related to analytics in the platform. So that would mean reporting in the core UI, performance analytics, and of course, platform analytics. It's just the name Platform Analytics is what we sort of go by. So it's everything there. So you are correct. It does look different as it relates to platform analytics. And I'll make sure that I add in that particular screenshot just so somebody knows the difference between the two of them. But this particular session, we are kind of talking about reporting and the way that it does there. But I think it's a great thing to bring up, and I'll make sure that I show the both of them. But understanding that Platform Analytics Academy covers everything as it's related to analytics, and all three of those, amongst some other things, actually fall underneath that. So, but great thing, and I appreciate you bringing that up. So we'll keep going here. So dynamic filter options. So this is something that has been around for a while. And if you're not using it, you should be. Just a way that you can really drill down information. In this particular case that you're looking at, this is a way to drill it down to you. So if you're building a report for yourself and you want to look at the incidents that are assigned to you, rather than you having to actually go to the assign to and name and then put in something from your name, which is free form, whatnot. That's definitely not a good thing that you should do. So here's a way that you can use some dynamic that is built into it to actually do that. There's other dynamic filters that are out there, and I believe that we have some documentation around that, and you can see the doc down at the bottom. But this is another thing that is really great and very powerful, and it gives you the ability to really filter down what you're actually looking at in that particular report. So again, based on what you're looking for, you can do it at your self level, at a group level, and things of that nature. So if you're not aware of this, you can definitely utilize this, and you should be if you're not. So, and Dan or Adam, please pause me when I come to the end of a slide if you want to add more to that. I'm definitely open to that because I think we all have really great content. And Olga, you as well. I'm sorry to add to any of this information, but if you're not familiar with dynamic filter options, you should definitely be using those.
These are awesome, and you can write your own.
Yep.
And again, this is one of the things that's later on. I think I'm talking about performance through here. A little counterintuitive, but these can really speed up performance as well. So dynamic is me. It's great, but it can also be used for those of us who are old enough to come from SQL land as a subquery. It actually runs before. It doesn't run as a subquery, but it runs before to analyze what's going on. But really, really useful for assigned to is me. Of course, you can't live without it. My group, my team members, whatever is going to be for managers, whatever you want to have, it can go run something, whatever JavaScript you want it to run. Pretty much. We have the administrators can create it, developers can create new ones, but it can run get that. But things like give me my open incidents, really, really, really useful to essential if you are for the dynamic queries, but also things where you want to control what's going on. Get all of the CIs that have an incident or something like that, where you can't dot walk to it. They're hard coded. You can't put everything as parameters, but if you have a question and I can't do some report and I got to get the data from A to query B, dynamic filter options and creating your own ones are there. We have the documentations in there. The documentation link. I know there are examples out on the web. I'm pretty sure I have a blog. I know I have a blog that goes through some of these examples, but don't let this one pass you by. Make sure you're thinking about this on how to do this for reusability and performance.
Okay, great. Thank you. Next, we'll talk about interactive filters, which are actually what you'll use to report on things, report on reports when you actually put those onto a dashboard. So again, if you have a quote unquote, what we would call maybe a general report, maybe open incidents, maybe you wouldn't do that. But if you did, but if you wanted a way to drill that information down a little bit more on whatever dashboard that you decide to put that on, then you definitely want to utilize interactive filters where you can. And then also, it may reduce the number of reports and dashboards that you need, and then combine with a dynamic filter can provide, some really personalized information that you can have. And of course, you can create custom interactive filters as needed as well. So this is the way that you can change that data when you're looking at a particular report on a particular dashboard. So utilize interactive filters wherever you can. Now, when you go to Platform Analytics, obviously if you have a report and you have a widget and Performance Analytics on the dashboard, one uses a breakdown, one uses an interactive filter. When we get to Platform Analytics and you have a dashboard there, it is one unified filter that will filter data visualizations that may be reported on the same information that you had on reports, and then also on to the indicator. So it is one unified filter. So I want to make sure that we know that going to the future is going to make life a whole lot easier. But if you're not there yet and you want to filter report data, interactive filters is the way that you want to do that. Another great thing is multiple data sets. So again, as you build out a report in the core UI, and you can see here, we have an image of a little icon that's down there at the bottom. So if you have information and you want to lay another bit of information on top of that, you can add multiple data sets. And this could reduce the number of reports that you actually are going to need, and you can create data sets from different tables, so it doesn't have to be the same information. Now, if you're using some sort of information that is trending, then obviously you need to make sure that it has information that has date information in it, so it can show it the same way. And you can have up to 5 different data sets that you decide to put on it. I think this is a really great feature that gives you the ability, when you think about it, if it's very like-minded information from a date perspective or whatnot, and it's good to have, instead of having 2 or 3 reports on the screen, maybe you can lay those all on top of each other using multiple data sets. So this is a really great thing that hopefully you're utilizing as well. And then on top of that, you can actually put drill downs into that particular data. So if you not only have multiple data sets, but even if you didn't have multiple data sets and you said, I want to drill down this particular report to more information. So an example is if I wanted to click on for a particular week, what we're looking at here for close per week, and then I wanted to see what that is by priority, you could click on that particular dot, and then it would take you to another report where then you could see actually that number, that 458 number, broke down by, in this example, the priority of the closed incident. So utilizing multiple data sets and then also drill downs is a way to really make your reports interactive and give you the ability of taking away showing 2, 3, 4, 5 reports, and you may only need a couple or even 1 report to actually show the data that you're trying to render on that screen. So use that information. You will use the same icon to get to both of them. When you click on that icon, you'll select whether or not you want to add a data set or you want to add a drill down. So a really great feature that I think is very, very powerful as it relates to the reporting. And then even further is that if you want to add additional group bys or stack bys on a particular report, you can do that as well right in under the configure panel of the report builder, I'm sorry. And again, another way of, rather than you having multiple reports of the same data, add a group by and then also a stack by. So now you can group the incidents by category, and then you can actually see them those particular categories by also their priority. So little small things, small changes that if you add to a report can really change what the actual end user is able to take in and get out of that particular report. And then also it saves you the ability of having to create multiple of those. So additional group by options are less used options, maybe if it's not something that's used a lot, but you still want somebody to be able to see it. Just think about the different ways that you can actually group that information that you're reporting on in that UI. So, and then another thing we want to talk about is content blocks. So Adam created a really amazing blog some years back about doing some really fancy things with content blocks. So again, if you have not moved on to platform analytics and you're still, previous to next experience and you're building dashboards, you can do some things with content blocks. There are some requirements that you have to add. In this case, OTNess. And Adam may be able to talk a little bit more about what that is required to actually show this particular information. But it just gives you a way to really take the data that you're rendering on your screen and give it a little bit more functionality to let somebody know exactly what they're looking at and what they can take away from it. Content admin role is required in order to do this, but this is something that is out there. I know that the blog that Adam had, we're actually rewriting it, so it'll be out there as well, and I'll make sure that I get it attached to this particular community item. But when you move over to platform analytics, this is actually a lot easier and functional, and you don't have to have the OTNess thing that's referenced here in the third bullet. So, Adam, I don't
That
know
was
if
a typo.
you speak to this a little bit.
Yeah, that was a typo.
Oh, it is a typo? Who typed it?
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. I did.
Well, I think I sent it to you. I'll just add it that we are going to bring this blog back. The content block stuff. This is an example. This is a very real example. We were using this internally on how to do different things to make your dashboard better. You had to use content blocks and the HTML content blocks, which still exist. We have to update it because some of it did change. You can do all these things. It's challenging. You do have to go in and I think you're writing in HTML. I don't think we did any dynamic stuff for this, but you can make it look really nice. But Olga, who's on, and and her team and our development team did a great job of just making it super simple in platform analytics. So if you need to do something like this, where I need to have headers and I need to have a table of contents and I need to have useful links that are driving action, just use platform analytics. I don't want to create a bunch of tech debt that we're then going to have to go back and fix. But with inline dashboards and platform analytics, you can do everything we see here. You just do it. It's just a rich text editor. And then with the advanced dashboard, you can do mind-blowing things that I've only dreamed about. But if you are on a responsive dashboard and you're okay doing some work that's only going to last another 12 months, 18 months, you can do it. We're going to get this blog back out there, and we'll talk about it probably in the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, and what's the right name, Adam? Because we did have a question. Somebody said, "What's Oatness? What's the real name?"
Well, you need you need content admin. So the users can use them. I'm not sure because something got truncated that came through. The CMS, and that's probably what we had in here. It was the content management system plugin, which is deprecated and no longer exists. But you can still do HTML blocks.
Okay.
And some dynamic content blocks. We left what you needed basically to do this are in there, and I think they're still on by default. But if you search for content blocks, that's what we're doing. We're doing HTML content blocks, and then they can be those can be added into that onto your dashboard.
Okay.
Probably need the dashboard admin role to do it. And there's a little bit of setup to make it all work, but again, if you need to do it, I'm going to highly discourage it at this point, because if you need this, we've solved this in a much simpler way, in a much more straightforward way with platform analytics, inline dashboards. But it can be done. Don't let it, I don't want to see somebody go spin up a Tableau dashboard because they need to have nice looking headers.
Yeah. And again, the third bullet, the start of it, that's wrong. That's a typo. So don't go out Googling and looking for that and wondering why your SC didn't tell you about something. So that is a typo. So forgive us for that. But like I said, we are rewriting that particular blog, and we'll have that out there soon. So good stuff. Thank you, Adam. So let's real quickly talk about a couple things to avoid when you're actually building out reporting. So group by on lists. So this is something that has been, I know as a former customer, it was something that I made a mistake on very early on in my career as it relates to ServiceNow as a former customer, and it was just too big. And we got real heavy into these group buys and thought this is really great until obviously we got the screen that you're seeing. The screenshot that you're seeing, the first one where it just kept running. The reality is that when it happened to me, it was much higher in seconds, and it ended up just not happening at all. So when you decide to do group buys on list, it's probably not the best place that you should do them. Stay away from that if you can. And just think of or decide of a different way to actually render that particular data. Maybe you filter it down a little bit more to have less results if that's what you're trying to achieve. Maybe there's a way of building that report as maybe a bar chart or a column or something like that. So then you can see that information rendered that way and put the group by directly into the chart. But putting it on a list is just, again, it comes down to how many results that you have that could potentially be there that you need to think about when you build that. And that would be the training that I would definitely tell you to do for anybody else that is going to build out a report. It can definitely cause some performance issues on large number of groups. So just be aware of that and stay away from it. And like I said, maybe there's a different chart or something that you can use and render the same exact information. And then when they click into a bar on a bar chart or something, it'll go to those same results. It'll just be a lot less of those particular results at one time. So then you won't have, hopefully, the performance issues. So just avoid group buys on lists. That's the best, a good rule to sort of live by as it relates to reporting on lists if you can. So good stuff there. So So next, let's talk about hard coding dates, right? So one of the things you want to make sure that you're aware of is obviously the time frame that you're going to have between dates that you select. So if you have a start date of January of this year to maybe the current date of today, that's a lot of data that it has to go through. So maybe you instead rather try to look at seeing if you can't do something like the last 3 months or the last 6 months as you actually filter inside of the report itself. It just the using dynamic filters like that will make it run more efficiently, and obviously make sure that hopefully there's not a whole lot of latency that you can necessarily do there. So one always good rule of thumb is it's good to search with dates, but just you want to be clear on how much or what the length of the dates are. So, dates rather than states is something that we've always sort of talked about. So just make sure that you're aware of what you're hard coding as it comes to the dates that you choose, and just be aware of that. Make sure that you use or choose to make really good decisions when it comes to that.
Dates, not states. I don't know if we said that. I just want to make sure that we are all clear about that.
Yeah.
Nope, it's hard coding in general. I think what we see sometimes is somebody has 100 reports because they just have this quarter. They just have like hard coded filters in there, and making sure you're using the dynamic filters, which is not something that I hope most of us know that, but particularly as you're talking to new users and they're creating uh, visualizations in platform analytics, or they're creating here, make sure they know they have this quarter and last quarter and and we have business calendars, and let's stay away from hard coding. It's the same issue we had with the dynamic filters, or the same concept where we have is me to use that. And if we have something that's different, the dates we're pretty good with, me we're good with, but creating some other dynamic filters allowed us to get out of hard coding.
Okay, great. Thank you. Avoid as much as you can using obviously calculated fields. We've come a long way with this, and the reporting function fields that we have out there now is really a way that you can get around probably most of whatever you're running into as it relates to, calculated fields. So you have to think if you have a calculated field, the script runs every time the record is viewed. So there could be performance concerns there, and queries execute on previous calculated value, but display calculated when it's viewed. So again, runtime issues and things of that nature. But again, the reporting function fields and a normal field with a business rule, if there's information that you always want to sort of be populated based on something else that's happening, you could definitely look at business rules. And then, like I said, the function field. So we had a really great academy on this a while back that actually went through all the different function fields that are out there, and looking even inside of the docs at some different business rules that you can think about creating or whatnot. So as much as you can, stay away from these, because understand that whatever you're doing in that is running at the time of render, and you could have some process issues there as well. So
And
yep.
I'll say, to be clear, calculated fields are different than formula fields, that are different than functions, that are different than PA formulas. They're all different. And the academy we did over the summer, I know it was over the summer, we go through more of it. But calculated fields is a very specific thing where we have a field that is checked as calculated. That doesn't necessarily apply to dynamically doing things like we have with function fields. All this is true. Just make sure, if you're not familiar with the different things, it's not the concept of calculated fields, but actually calculated fields. Function fields can have some of the same issues, but formula fields can have that. Function fields are fine. PA formulas are fine. No problems whatsoever.
Yeah, and I'll make sure that I put with this that actual you're talking about the session that you did on the formula stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll make sure that I put that with this session so people can hear those particular things.
And there was a comment that really, really important comment for this. And the other one is, again, many of us that have been around, don't store what you can calculate.
Yep.
And for function fields, that's true. But in ServiceNow, I mean, disk space, relatively speaking, is pretty cheap. And this has to do with the reporting fields too. That when it's materialized, it's easier to report. It's very clear, and we can create business rules on it. We can ensure we have that same calculation all the time. Definitively gives us a lot of benefits. I know I used this one in the session before, but it was by CEO, by CIO saying, "Don't make me think." When you have to do the calculation, you're having to think. And if we can just materialize it, or we can use a function field, it's fine. But don't make me think. Don't make me do the same math problem over my head all the time. That's what calculated fields do. So anyway, I will move on from that. But we talked about that pretty extensively for a few sessions ago.
Yeah, and I'll make sure that I attach that to this so people have reference for it. Obviously, a big one here: avoid performance analytics scripts wherever you can. Runs on every row of the indicator source. So, again, performance issues there cannot be used in reports. And again, we have some other options, and there's some exceptions there as well. Score start, score end is somewhere that you can use that, and it is used, the performance analytics script. So again, just be aware of when and where you decide to do these things, and make sure that you're really locked in on whatever that script is from a performance perspective, to make sure that it's going to run really, really well. So, and with that, because we're talking about performance and all those things, this is a great time to segue to Adam, and Adam is going to speak to the next few slides as it relates to performance tuning.
All right.
Before we do that,
Sure.
There were just a couple of, I think, that would be really good general questions. A lot of the questions are very specific, but there's a couple of ones I think are more general that we should and actually Paul's question might actually be lead right into Adam's. So maybe we'll hold off on that one. That's the question about order of conditions mattering for performance. Does that make a difference? Yes or no? And then the other one was on KB articles that have HTML tags in them. That, Olga, I think I might need your help on this one, but I believe that is not yet that we don't.
I'll handle this one. I mean, this goes back, so I'm going to take it the way I want to take it. How to export KB articles from a list, in a report, a list the same without the HTML tags. This has to do with any field that's an HTML field, right? When I see it in a list, I see the tags. I don't see it formatted. Particularly when I export it. The way that I've approached this in the past is to add a shadow field. I add a custom field. It is a custom field. Don't be afraid to customize, especially when you're expanding. So I add a new field that's a read-only field that is set via a before business rule. You can do a flow as well if you want. That would strip the HTML. In a way that makes sense too, because you don't want to just strip the HTML. You want to strip the HTML, but replace, NPs and BRs with a new line, so it's still readable. That's always the trick, right? How do I strip HTML but make it readable? I believe we have an out-of-the-box API, and I'm pretty sure there's an API that will do that. If not, you could write your own function. The internet's alive with a regex that will do something like that. But when the body changes of the HTML field, whether it's KB or something else, I would strip it. And then I can report on that cleaned field. But rather than cleaning it on the fly, which you could do with a calculated field, I can just store it calculated. And I'm not storing terabytes of KB articles. So generally it's going to be pretty fine. But that's where I would add that new field and run a business rule or a flow to clean it, store it, and make my reporting way easier and simpler. I'm going to hope that answers the question.
Yeah.
Do we
want to speak to Paul's, or are we going to?
Let's get into it and see if I'll definitely.
You might cover it there. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Anything else, Dan, at this point? I know there's a lot of questions here, but.
I just muted myself and I start talking. So no, yes, nothing else that I think we have to go over with the group yet.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. All right, Adam.
All right. So report stats. The first thing we want to look at when this deals with when we are looking at responsive dashboards and reports, where we log the performance, some of the simple performance characteristics of them. How many times does it run? How long does it take on average? There is, I don't know if it's the next slide, but report stats executions, which will actually log the last 25, I think is the out-of-the-box setting. You can change that, but 25 is a pretty reasonable number. The last runs of those as well. This is really important if you have thousands of reports and you don't look at them all. And some of them are dynamic. So a dynamic report might be really fast for you, but really slow for your VP, and you'll probably hear about that. So this allows you to look at the report stats and say, hey, I want to see the reports that are run a lot, that take a long time. If I have a report that is run once a quarter and it takes 8 minutes, I actually don't care. I don't have a lot of empathy for that. But if it is something that's taking 7 seconds and it is run 5,000 times a day, that does matter. It is taking system resources, and there's a lot of users who are waiting for it. So by looking at report stats, you can come in. I'll often just put a bunch of qualifications on this. So something that we had the last time it was run. So if it ran, it took 4 minutes, but it was run 6 months ago, I don't care. So I'm looking at something that's run the last 90 days. I want to see something that has at least 1,000 runs and that has an average time on an average time of more than 5 seconds. I'll start there and we'll work our way down. So I've built several dashboards over the years that look at this and help me look at where should I focus my attention. Because it is on a report, you can also dot walk to the report characteristics like table. Table is one I'm going to look at. And you can build some more reports on this as well. So the table, I can look at the type. I'll tell you, if somebody comes in and says a performance problem, Thomas talked about it, about grouping on lists. That is the absolute first thing I look for. So we go, let's just turn off the group by, or let's make it a bar chart with a drill down. But there are lots of different ways you can get around it to get rid of the group by list on a large table. But report stats gives me something to look at. I don't have to wait for one of my users to come yell at me. I can look at this and monitor what's going on. You can also layer performance analytics on top of this if you want to start saying, hey, what's trending? What are my top 10 reports that, again, have more, I'm making these up, but more than 5-second runtime and more than 1,000 runs. And you can see our new things coming in or going out for whatever comes in. But this is how I prioritize. Reports are slow, that comment. I mean, I'm assuming we've all got that at some point in time. And this allows me to really see what's going on and go, of my top 25 slowest reports, 17 of them are on change. I should probably go look at that. And that might be a great place to then focus in on, hey, let's get a report source. Let's figure out what's going on. Maybe they're dynamic and we have some manager who's looking for all my reports. The CEO is coming in and there is a filter that's running all my users where we really should get them onto PA, or we should just not have them use that version of the report. So report stats gives me all that insight. Let's go on to the next one. Slow queries. Okay, so slow queries are really similar as well. When something's going wrong, I will look at slow queries. Again, I use the same concepts that we use for report stats, but I'm actually looking at the queries. This is pretty advanced to come through. So not everybody's going to want to go to this, but if I am ever looking at a performance issue for a specific query, then I will go into slow queries. There's a little bit of splunking that's involved to find the query. This logs all slow queries on the instance, which I don't know what the threshold is. I don't know if it's 100 milliseconds. I don't think it logs absolutely everything, but it logs everything that trips the wire. But going through this, I can look at my examples and I can query for select. I'll put the table name in there. I'm going to look for something that's run a lot or has the amount of time. But I'll find the query. And then once I get into the query, you're actually going to see the SQL that is generated, or an example SQL that's generated. So if there is a dynamic is me, it's just going to pick one of the me's. Just to be clear, it's not logging everyone individually. It does understand patterns, and that dynamic is me. It's the same query, just one, the constants are different. So I can go in there, I can look at it. What I use for this is there is a button to explain, and it will run the explain. It'll run the MariaDB explain, and it will show me what's going on. And then I'll start looking at that bottom section that will tell me, hey, we're using this query. In this case, this example that we have is doing a primary lookup. It thinks there's going to be 2 rows, 1 row, 1 row. This is fast. I'm not going to get it any faster. But if I start seeing things where I see it's not using an index, then I'm going to go look at my indexes. And I'm going to start looking to go, hey, do I need a new index? And we'll talk about that in a moment. But do I need a new index, or is the index not where I expect it to be? Going through this technique is where it came to me when I was looking at this many years ago to go, oh, I'm looking at state as open, not adding active. And when I added active, I was then able to use the active field, or if I have an index that's a composite index that has multiple fields, you have to start from left to right. If you know, the right fields are not used if the first field's not. But by looking at what the indexes are there, I might be able to adjust the conditions, particularly adding additional conditions that are logically not needed, but performance-wise, it'll help me pick up the right index. Or again, I might add the index. I might end up adding a new field to an existing index to help me along as well. But for those of you who are comfortable with an explain, which again is not all of us, you can see that it is here. Again, this logs everything, inserts, updates, deletes, selects well beyond reporting, but in reporting, it'll help you look at this as well. All right, let's go. A question came in for report stats. I don't know if you need just report admin or dashboard admin, or if you actually need full-on admin. Somebody put in report admin. That's what I hope. Slow queries, I'm going to be pretty sure you're going to need admin, or there's some performance admin or something like that. It's going to be go beyond what your normal queries are, what our normal users are. All right. Related to what we had before was index suggestions. So there is a utility in the system that will help you with index suggestions to come through. Be careful with this. And I think it's this last line. Oh, it's not the last line. You can add indexes as an admin. You can't remove them, as far as I know. So on a subprod, you can try it, but deleting an index requires support to do that. But if you want to add them in, then you clone over, it'll go away. Useful to look at is it's actually looking at your query log. It's looking at slow queries. It's looking at your query information, and then it can recommend queries to come in. The simple one that I look at, particularly for custom tables and custom fields, choices are not indexed by default. References are. All references are indexed by default, but choices are not. And sometimes that choice really needs to be indexed. So out of the box stuff, this is not something you're going to need to worry about. But if you're creating custom applications, creating custom tables, particularly when they start getting large, then think about, do I have the right indexes for that to come through? And between slow queries and index suggestions, it might help you tune that up. All right, let's go to the next one. Limit row user preferences. So this is one, the row count and how many records I get back. This is one of those issues that can get worse with calculated fields because it's going to calculate that 100 times. It's looking up the references. This is all pretty optimized to come through. But if you're having just major issues, maybe I take away the 100 rows per user and just leave them to 50 or 20. I believe the default's normally 20. I have seen jobs that will just go push people back down to 50 or 20. I don't know if I like that, but it is something that you can look at. If a user is complaining, I will normally go look at it and go, hey, just change it to 50, change it to 20. Let's not use the 100. It's system wide. So if they change it, that's what they're going to see everywhere. This actually applies if you do a group by list, which you shouldn't be, but if you do, this is how many records show up underneath that to come as well. But if somebody is just really slow, one user on one time, I'll definitely look at this to make sure that they're not setting it to 100. And if you set down 20, it's going to be 5 times faster or close to that. Since we're all friends here, I will tell you there is a setting you can actually override it for a user. It's a user preference. So even if there's only these settings here, I can go in and make mine 1,000. I'm not saying I've done that, but I'm not saying I haven't. Okay. Existing indexes and databases. So this is really important. I probably should have put this one before index suggestions. Before we're adding indexes, just go look at what the indexes are. So if I go to the table, Thomas talked about it before, go buy your admin some donuts or whatever it works for them. Donuts and a Diet Coke has always gotten access to my office. But go look at the indexes because you'll start seeing, hey, I can go look at there's not an index on this field I'm looking for, or like resolve date and close date. I know nothing, hopefully, I know nothing is closed or that has not been resolved, and maybe resolve date has a filter, so I'll filter on resolve date. Now, again, I might adjust these, I might add new ones, but go look at what's there and go, oh, I can ask that. And specifically when you get things like active and then state, make sure you put the active flag in there. It can really help. Now I'm going to put the comment in here. that is not everybody knows what a ref 20 is, or a str a string 4. This has got to be on the task table. Case is on the task table. We reuse fields in the background. So if you ever export data out, if you export directly out of the database and not using the APIs, you'd see the same type of thing, which is a bit nasty. That's why we don't do that. We don't do SQL queries because this stuff's hard. There is a table, sys storage alias, and sys storage alias will tell you for a specific table, like case, what field is a string 4, what field is a string 10. That is just a 40 character field or 100 character field. When you add new fields to a table, to like task, if the case table is not using that, it will put it in there and reuse it. Nothing you have to worry about because it's all done by the system, everything in the background, but it allows us to add way more fields than the system could possibly actually handle. Right. So if we don't have all these empty fields all the time, which in relational databases, there is a row limit, there's a field limit. And this allows us to make the most of what's actually going on in the back end. But if you're looking at the databases, it is the physical table name. So a ref 5, a string 10, sys storage alias is the table name that tells you on this table, this field is labeled this. This is the logical name versus the physical name. And the indexes have the physical name. All right, let's go on. Hopefully I can get through the rest of these. So I've done this in the past as well at the keyword search for large text searches. When I'm doing really big searches, I will use a keywords contain, because that is going to hit the text index first and then return the set, and it's going to make things faster. I will say be careful about this one because text indexes are not always real time. Sometimes there's a little bit of a delay, so I can't use this. But if I am just doing kind of big searches that come through, it's something to keep in the back of your mind to go, hey, can we just search it twice? So this will find using the text index incidents that have unable and two, and well, two is probably gonna get dropped out, but unable and boot in the description or short description or whatever is in the index in the text fields. And then from that super small set compared to the total, it will search for the description containing unable to boot. But rather than doing a full table scan, it's going to cheat by using that text index. So I found this one to be super useful when I can use it, but be aware of what comes in. If you're looking for a very specific incident, it may not be in the text index yet. All right, next one. Operators matter. Is fastest, starts with is next, contains is after that. These again from SQL land. It is an equal sign. It is a like with a percent at the end, and it contains is a like with a surrounded by percents. Right? The databases are databases. So if you are, if you can do an is, do it is. If you can do starts with, do a starts with. And if you can do it contains, do it contains. Or then you can do it contains, but don't do it contains if an is will work. That's just, we'll be straightforward with that one. And then limit unneeded fields, particularly the reference stuff. It does have to go look up the reference field. We store the sys we have to do a join. If you don't need it, then don't put it into your list view. Right now, if I look here, the black fields are probably fine. The green fields will probably cause an issue.
And that's it.
Okay.
And I know you got to drop and get to another call. So thank you very much.
All right.
I appreciate it. We have a lot of questions that we're obviously not going to be able to get to, but the great thing is, and this is one of the reasons why we ask you all to put these into the Q&A, is that I will get all of these questions, and what I will do after this call is over is I will actually get together with a good group of people, and we will get answers to hopefully all of these questions or some sort of reference or something that everyone can look at, and I'll make sure that I post that into this community event, so you'll have that. So again, there are going to be quite a few questions that are not going to get answered today, but don't fret. That will definitely make sure that we get those answered. So let me go ahead and wrap this up because there are a couple other things, and I know that Dan and myself actually have to get to another call too, so we will have a hard stop. So wrapping up, so key takeaways, just make sure that you develop persona-based analytics that address the specific use cases. Fewer reports are better reports. having a lot of reports doesn't mean anything. If you can do the same thing with fewer of those, that is a lot better idea. And monitor usage to ensure things run smoothly. Adam just went through a lot of performance type things that you can look at. So make sure that you're looking at those. So a few best practices to think about. So define clear reporting requirements. So again, have those conversations up front with whoever you're building the report for. Make sure you know exactly what they're looking for. Ask questions. Here's a question that I think if you're empowered to do that you should always ask. And also something else. The question is ask them why they need it, right? And just because is not an answer. Like, why do you need it? Have you looked? Is there something out there that's already existing that you can utilize? Utilize that first. And also, anybody who does analytics within or should have the ability to say no. Like, no, you don't need that. We have this right over here. There's no need for you to have what we've already obviously created. So having some power in your answers is huge. So look at anything that's out of the box. I did see a comment that I think that Dan may have already answered, that there's a lot of out of the box reports that are out there. People should search and look. People should look before they actually come to you and request for something. There's probably a good chance that something's already out there. If it's not, then that's when you start having those conversations around what exactly that they need. Create personalized dashboards. I know that we have a lot of out of the box dashboards that come out, but if those don't work for you, create personalized that are tailored to different roles, different personas that are relevant to the particular groups and stakeholders. So be very specific about the dashboards that you decide to create and make sure that they're working for a different persona that's worked within your organization. Leverage performance analytics and or platform analytics, right? So we've talked about been talking about platform analytics for the past year and a half, a lot of great things that are there. If there's things that you know are more powerful and will do better for your organization in platform analytics, then encourage your sysad, whoever, to say, hey, when are we going to upgrade? When are we going to get there? If you can't, then leverage what you have that's out there and use it all together to be something better for the customer as they actually look at it. Visualizations, we talked about this. Check out the Academy session that we did. Understanding visualizations will help you generate better reports. Don't go with what's comfortable because you're comfortable with that. There generally could possibly be a better visualization that's going to render that data in a better way that's going to give them a better answer. Schedule, automate reports. So if you have reports that are out there, I did see a couple questions, not necessarily related exactly to just scheduling your report. There was some customization that I saw in one of those questions, and we'll see if we can get you an answer to that. But schedule and automate reports. If you can schedule a report and have it go to somebody on a weekly basis or whatever it is, do that. That's less steps that somebody's got to worry about. They don't have to create it. So utilize that as well. Data validation and integrity. When you're building something, validate that data, make sure that it's right. Again, this is where those report sources come into play. So once you verified it, you've had the backroom conversations, said this is exactly what we should be using, then you should definitely be, creating those report sources and telling people to actually use that. Avoid overloading reports with data. Trim that down, make it where it's going to run faster. It's going to populate faster. They're going to see it faster. So use the filters wherever you can. Just make sure that you're not, populating reports with tons and tons of data that they actually can't even dissect at any given moment. Give them what they can actually dissect when they look at it. Filter and segment data. Again, we talked about this. Filter it down as much as you possibly can. Make sure that, again, what you're giving them, they can digest in one look. Provide context and explanation. So when you build these things out, if you need to put some sort of verbiage below to help somebody understand, this is where it comes into descriptions as well. I did a blog on that years ago. Use your descriptions. So when somebody goes out and searches, if something's already out there, the description will actually help them find that. Monitor report usage. Adam talked about that a little bit. There's things within the platform that'll actually let you know what reports are being used. If there's reports out there that are not being used, get rid of them, right? There's no need in clogging up the platform with things that aren't being used. And then regularly review and optimize reports. If you have a report out there that was highly important at one particular time, keep monitoring and look at it. And if you find nobody's accessed that report in 6 months, then you should have a serious conversation about whether or not that report needs to stick around or should something be updated on it. Look what you're rendering, what you're showing to the customer. Is what you're showing still relevant to when they built a report maybe 6 months ago? So it's constant conversations that you need to have. So invest in training. Train your people up. If you have other people that are going to build the reports out for you, train them up. Give them the expectations that you have based on all of these academies that we give you and just your experience on what makes things run better. Give them that same information before you give them the tools to actually create anything that's out there. And then we do have a couple academies that can help you. Roles, understanding the roles that are out there when you create things. Tuning solutions for reporting goes into a little bit more of what Adam was talking about. And of course, which violations that are out there. Again, we're over by 4 minutes. We have all of these questions, all 29 of them that are now recorded. I'll work on getting everybody the answers for that. And then in 2 weeks, we'll see you back where we're going to talk about process mining and platform analytics that are better together. Some really great updates as it relates to that. And with that, thank you to the panelists. Thank you to everybody that came. Sorry we couldn't get to everybody's questions, but we'll get them answered. And we'll see everybody in 2 weeks. Thank you.